Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest rock and roll stories in the universe, all from the fans' perspective. It's Rock Stories with the Brummster. Now, here's the host of the show, my rockin' daddy, the Brummster.
Hey, what's happening? Brummster here. Rock Stories with the Brummster. Real behind-the-scenes rock stories. Pulling back the curtain, if you will. But it's a little bit different of a program than other shows that focus on rock stories. Most of the time, you hear rock stories from, like, the artists themselves, right? But never from the fans' perspective, right? The fans' perspective. That's why you and I are having this conversation today, and you're having a chance to hear it right here on Rock Stories with the Brummster. On demand, all of our past episodes right here at Spotify, the Brummster channel. And it's free, by the way. I have some cool rock and roll playlists as well that you can hear if you have the Spotify Premium Special, which is only $9.99 a month. You get unlimited tunage and everything. But if you don't hear it at Spotify, no big whoop. I am rocking as well online, and my friend Brian's online station, rockradio559.com. That's right. rockradio559.com has this show right here, Rock Stories with the Brummster, every single Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then, of course, I rock your hard drive at 5 with tunage on your way home every Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. Every Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. at rockradio559.com with a hard drive at 5 with the Brummster. Well, it's time for another killer rock story session, man, and I'm all about it. Last week, had my good friend Brooke Hanner on and had some great stories to tell. This guy that's on today, he is amazing. He's a great friend of mine. We met in a work capacity. And yeah, that's right. Out there on the sales trail, having a lot of fun, playing music, laughter, great times, laughing at weird customers. You remember that, right? Russell Neese on Rock Stories with the Brummster. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Josh. Thank you. I am live all the way. I'm currently in Hooker, Oklahoma. That's a little town in the Panhandle, close to where I was born in Beaver, Oklahoma. And I'm sure your guests will know Beaver, Oklahoma. You say, why would they know Beaver? Well, that's where the cow chip throwing capital of the world is. And I'm happy to say that my cousin currently holds the world record for throwing a cow chip. So that's our claim to fame out here in the Panhandle. So
throwing cow chips. Throwing cow chips. How big are these cow chips, Russ?
They're about size of Frisbee.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and you're supposed to lick your thumb in between the rows.
You got to get that friction, you know what I mean? That helps that cow chip just fly a little bit smoother with a little bit better aerodynamics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you could say we know our chips out here.
Hey, I chip you not, man. I chip you not.
That's funny.
Russell Neese, you love rock and roll. When we cruised around doing a lot of sales calls, etc., working in the central San Joaquin Valley, going out and taking care of customers and stuff, we had a lot of windshield time in between. And not only did we have a chance to talk and catch up and get to know one another, but also tell some really cool stories. And, you know, I'm a rocker. I love the classic rock. And I'm sitting there playing that, and you're like, hell yeah, you can play some classic rock, man. That's what I'm all about. And you've got some great rock stories to share. As you well know, we're doing a show from the fans' perspective, telling those behind-the-scenes stories, you know, concerts, memories, artists. Where down memory lane would you like to take our listeners today, brother?
Well, a few different ones. One concert that I had tickets to and my parents wouldn't let me go to, and that was Jimi Hendrix. He played Norman, Oklahoma 6 months before he died, and I knew the guy that put Jimmy up overnight we can talk about that. But the one that I still have the ticket and the poster from that show.
Oh,
and,
that show, that specific show, and that's the show before Jimmy died. Oh, wow. And you still have that in your possession. How badass. Awesome.
I do. Yeah, I do. And my friend that put him up, he signed the original Electric Ladyland album with all the naked women on it. That was a British or European version that was released over in Europe. In the American version, it was different. They had a picture of him and a few other things. But anyway, my best rock memory, it would be 1970, the summer of 74 in the Cotton Bowl. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll say 1A and 1B.
Okay.
In the Cotton Bowl, I saw the Rolling Stones right when they brought in Mike Wood and they introduced him, and the Eagles opened for the Stones.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, and it was a boiling hot day in Dallas, Texas. Sitting on the 20-yard line, the stage was in the end zone, and there was probably easy 100,000 people in that place. And Billy Preston played keyboards for the Stones, and an amazing show. Amazing, they were in their prime. They were probably in their, oh my goodness, maybe in their mid-30s at that time.
Yeah.
And high energy.
And Billy Preston, I just got done watching the 3-part series, folks, Rock Stories with the Brummster at Spotify, the Brummster channel, and rockradio559.com. Russell Neese, our guest, giving us some great rock and roll memories from the fans' perspective today. Rolling Stones, opener, the Eagles, Dallas, Texas. You mentioned Billy Preston. Just got done watching the 3-part Get Back Beatles series on Disney Plus, being a fly on the wall in the room as they recorded that album and all those songs. And Billy Preston, the 5th Beatle, he came in and sat down and just started playing, and they're like, we'd have to pay this guy if he was a session musician, and he's badass. Basically, he's not asking for anything. He's just having fun hanging out. And they put his name on that album as though he was one of the Beatles. So, I mean, dude is amazing. I mean, and so he's there with the Stones in 1974 playing the Ivories.
Yeah, and this is a perfect segue talking about Billy Preston, because the 1A and 1B concerts for me, the other concert I saw was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1975. It was George Harrison, Leon Russell, Ravi Shankar, and Billy Preston, and George Harrison's backup band, and it was a small venue. So seeing Billy Preston play with the Stones and then play with George Harrison live, it was absolutely amazing. That was probably that was a more intimate setting, unlike the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, where there's 100,000 fans and it's 102 degrees. This was a smaller venue. Yeah, Jeff Beck was a part of that experience as well. And during the mid-'70s, Jeff Beck had the Blow by Blow and the Wired albums, and it was kind of a landmark mix that he had, and he brought that to that show. He was lead / rhythm guitarist with George Harrison, Billy Preston on keyboards, and Leon Russell on keyboards, who is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Ravi Shankar came out and played the sitar first, but they would sing together. And I would say, he played all of his songs. This Too Shall Pass, Here Comes the Sun, My Sweet Lord. He ended with My Sweet Lord. And concert was about an hour and a half long, and to be a part of something that was a part of the Beatles, to see him live He was wearing all white, and it looked like he was 6'5". He must have been a beanpole. But he came out and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm really hoarse tonight. I apologize," with his English accent. And I think that his album was called Dark Horse at the time. Something Horse. I'm trying to remember it. But growing up in Norman, Oklahoma, some friends of mine, we made the trip up to Tulsa, and to this day, I think as far as the talent that was on that stage, I don't really recall anything that would surpass that. I saw ZZ Top in Oklahoma City, Josh, in 1973 when they had no beards. They had no facial hair.
That's right. They look like just a set of cowboys, right? Just with the cowboy hats and everything. They didn't have that ZZ Top look yet, did they?
Right. And I must say, I never heard Ted Nugent, but I heard he was very, very loud. But ZZ Top, oh my goodness. My ears were ringing for a week after that. That was in Oklahoma City in 73. They were incredible. And as far as talent though goes, it would have to be the George Harrison show. Right. It was unbelievable to me. As a kid, I'm 65 years old now. In the early 60s, I bought all the Beatle 45 records and then the LPs and he had a real spiritual background to him too. That's when he was into gurus and mysticism and truth and love and really interesting. He talked a lot about his love for Jesus on stage, which was really interesting, which I dug. And because he was kind of into the Hare Krishna thing, and it was something that I'll always remember. He talked in Get Back in the studio. He talked to the other Beatles about that philosophy that you're describing right now, which is, you're never going to get it to be as good as you want it to be unless you just let it happen. They all came back down giddy as can be to listen to what they recorded up on the roof. And half of it was with the cops standing off at the door, tapping their toe, saying, "We got to shut this down. We got to shut this down." And they're just smiling because they're just rocking, and the cops aren't making them leave, but they kind of, are nudging them to leave. And they finally go down there, and George says, "We couldn't have even tried to make that happen. We couldn't have, there's no amount of effort we could have done to have made that happen like that." And because the second the cops showed up, it just, all the Beatles clicked their energy up like 5 levels. And what they made was historic because of that, but it never would have happened. He goes, if we had scheduled the police to come and be here, we couldn't have got that result, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but you know what I'm saying? Right. Like that's the philosophy you're talking about, kind of let it be, like live and let live kind of thing, right? Yeah, exactly. Wasn't that the last time that the Beatles played on that roof?
Yep.
Yeah. I've
freezing their ass off, by the way. Freezing their bloody asses off.
Yeah. I've seen, in Westwood back in the 80s, Ringo Starr used to go shopping all the time, and that's when he was, I don't know, Catherine Bach was his wife at the time. They did some sort of cave movie or something, but he must have been all of 5'2", and
little dude. Compared to me, probably a little dude. Folks, if you're listening to me for the first time, theater of the mind, I'm a big fella. Describe me compared to little old Ringo Starr that you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
In comparison,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Well, you've seen the silhouette of Bigfoot. That's Josh Brum. He's huge.
In basketball, my nickname was the Eclipse. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. It's well, as we say back here in Oklahoma, you're biggin. You're biggin.
How did you meet all these people? I know the answer. You've not only are you well traveled, well cultured, you love music, but you're also not just an Oklahoma boy. You've also lived in the realm of Beverly Hills, etc. And I'm sure rubbed some elbows and seen some cool shows and met some folks that way as well. Was that how you met Ringo Starr? Just going out shopping and stuff?
No. Well, I used to have a friend that used to get me backstage passes to the Universal Studios amphitheater, and it's not called that anymore. But one of the nicest artists that I'd ever met and had a conversation with was Willie Nelson, and a little guy as well. I don't know. He was probably 5'5" or something like that. But I walked up to him and I say, "Hey, Willie, you want to sign an Okies hat?" And he said, "Sure." And he signed it a couple of times. And it's back when he would go out on stage and have a fifth of Jose Cuervo just sitting there. And he was just a sweet, gentle soul. Long red braids. Met Hank Williams Jr. backstage at his show, and rowdy and loud, and got to sit in a real cozy theater in Westwood, which is right next to UCLA. Maybe 125 people. Waylon Jennings, and got to meet him. He was at a fellow Okies house that previous day, James Garner, the actor, and I came in somewhat three sheets to the wind because I was watching my Oklahoma Sooners play the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and we came back and won, and I was all jazzed up, and I said, "What about those Sooners?" And he stopped his show, and he says, "Yeah, they weren't supposed to do that. I was at James Garner's house up there in Bel Air, and we were watching the game. Damn, was he happy!" And it was just Waylon Jennings, and he had all these foot pedals that he would press to be his backup. The drums, the rhythm, all that. And his wife, Jessie Coulter, at the time, came out, and he licked her all over her face. It was somewhat of an intimate show. And so the crossover with well, I'd have to say another artist that I can tell you about, and he's a friend of mine. His name's Larry Gatlin, and the Gatlin brothers. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was three of them, and I get to see Larry once a year at the Quanah Parker family reunion. They adopted him, a Comanche family, but then again. And I don't know why this is. I think Larry is 5'6". Why are all these superstars under 6 feet? Well, except for Hank Williams Jr. The guy was an offensive lineman like you. But so blending country and rock, and here in Oklahoma, everybody listens to rock and country, and the beautiful blend that is. So those are some of the
Southern rock. Exactly. Yeah. Southern rock is really nothing more than a bleed over, if you will, of outlaw country. Outlaw country is rock and roll bleeding into country. So that's kind of where they cross paths, correct? So you got 38 Special, Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, and you could easily throw some Hank Williams Jr. in there. There's some Hank Williams. Yeah, you throw some Bocephus on or
Right.
even some stuff from Willie and Waylon, and you've got some rockin' stuff. It could just as easily had been played side by side with some Skinner or what have you, right?
Right. Marshall Tucker, I saw them play, and they're an outlaw kind of rock country with a flute, and it works. Heard It in a Love Song, Can't You See, those famous old kind of country rock songs from Marshall Tucker, like you said. And I think even Molly Hatchet was kind of that way. They were a Southern rock band.
Yep. Molly Hatchet. Yep.
Yeah. I saw some really obscure country artists. Well, not obscure, but maybe to the hard rock audience that you have. There was a show that I saw once, and I got to meet George Jones. He was incredible honky-tonk torch twang singer of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and I think he died in the early 2000s, but the guy just had it. And Merle Haggard, got to meet him, saw him many times. And then there was an artist that they would call The Voice. He really never made it to huge superstardom, but his name was Vern Gosdin. And he sang This Ain't My First Rodeo. And who's ever listening, Google that song. You'll like it. Yeah.
Did you say Vern with a V? Is it like Victor or Burn?
V is in victory. Yeah, Vern Gosdin.
Excellent. I'm going to make sure we include that in our notes. Definitely. Man, these rock stories we get to hear right here on Rock Stories with the Brummster. You can't beat these behind the scenes, real stories from the fans' perspective, man. I love it. I love you, Russ. Thanks for being on the show, dude. You kick ass, man. Hey, you mentioned Jimi Hendrix earlier, and you mentioned ZZ Top. Let's put them in a sphere together for a second. Most people would not realize that ZZ Top or Billy Gibbons and Frank Beard actually played with Jimi Hendrix on tour with them, and even got up and played with them as well. But that's kind of a two different worlds, right? Like you would ZZ Top, little old band from Texas, playing with Jimmy. What?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but the band Chicago was going to tour with Jimmy before he passed away. They were good friends as well. So that type of the lead guitarist. I had front row seats to see Chicago in '76 and Norman too. But Jimi Hendrix, Billy Gibbons always paid homage to Jimi Hendrix, and all the they say imitation is the most incredible form of flattery. Stevie Ray Vaughan, who probably arguably out Jimmy, and I had tickets to see Hendrix. It was 1970, Norman, Oklahoma, and my parents said, "You're not going. They smoke marijuana there." And Mom, Dad, and he played two shows. And if you go on YouTube, you'll find Jimi Hendrix, Norman, Oklahoma, 1970s. Someone took a reel-to-reel recorder in there with batteries and recorded that show.
Oh, are you serious? So that is like, you can go YouTube the show you're talking about. That's badass.
Yeah.
1970, Norman, Oklahoma, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. YouTube it, folks. Wow.
Yeah. And here's another story. I was in L.A. talking to some people, and they said, "Where you from?" Originally, I said, "I'm from Norman, Oklahoma." And he said, "Oh, I saw Jimi Hendrix there. I gave him a hit of acid. He bent down, and I put a piece of blotter acid on his tongue." And he rocked the show. I mean, Hendrix was I, he was real famous for his consumption of psychedelics back then, and so there's a few stories that I know about, that whole culture back in the '60s, and really how it cut short so many incredible artists, Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison.
Right.
And I think they were all 27 years old or 28 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's on one hand, we love these artists and we love their art and we love their music and we honor them. Rock Stories with the Brummster here on the Brummster channel, Spotify, and at rockradio559.com. At the same time, we don't glorify the fact just because we tell the story, it's descriptive, not prescriptive, right?
Right.
We're describing a culture that was what it was, and this was some great music. That is a trip, dude. You bumped into the person that dropped some acid on Jimmy's tongue. Oh my God, man. Wow.
Yeah.
That was the culture back then, and definitely the consequences to that kind of lifestyle. You just named off 3 amazing talents that all died prematurely because of it.
Well, Hank Williams Sr., I think he was 28 as well.
Mm-hmm. Too young.
Yeah, in the back of a Cadillac, New Year's Eve, 1953, with Minnie Pearl in the back seat trying to keep him alive, But, so many great artists, so many great talent. I think that they were so great they just got bored. And they were trying to seek out others that were on their level and to expand their consciousness. And 1967, 68, what was going on in the United States? There was Vietnam. It was the first war that was on television every night. I remember my dad cussing the TV every night. They give the body count. 68, Martin Luther King, and
civil rights were a major flashpoint at the time, right?
Yeah, and Robert Kennedy gets assassinated the same year, and America was a mess, and I love my country, and we're going through a lot right now too, and we keep the faith, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that whether it stays this way much longer, who knows? But I love the fact that we live in a country still right now that a boy from Hanford, California and a guy from Norman, Oklahoma can use technology like this to get on a show that reaches just umpteen tons of people who tune in to a podcast, because this is a soapbox. This is our soapbox, and we have the right, the freedom to be able to do that. I think it's so amazing. And so, I'm completely anti a lot of other people's beliefs, anti-patriotic beliefs, etc. Things that are, what do you call it? Just not right as far as sacrilege, stuff like it. I don't like it. But guess what? The same freedom that I have to believe everything I believe means I have to afford that same right to someone else. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything, but we live in this free country where we can sit on the air and talk about these cool stories and share these memories. So rather than just being at a bar or whatever and shooting the breeze with 2 or 3 people, now you've got these memories locked into a treasure chest to be enjoyed by other Americans and other people around the world who love freedom as well. In perpetuity, right? I mean, how cool is this, man? We live in a great country, but we're pretty messed up now. And, we still see, who was it? Kurt Cobain, same thing.
Yeah.
Right. He got depressed and ended up committing suicide. but a lot of that was caused by that lifestyle. I think you're right. A lot of in excess, Hutchinson, right? All these people, they're so deep into their art, and they're trying to just keep up and go to the next level, and but what a great legacy though that they do have. On the other side of the coin, the silver lining in the dark cloud is we've got all their music, we've got all their memories. To this day, man, there are people releasing songs from Jimmy, from Janice, from Jim, right?
All right. Yes. Yeah. Some of the most divergent artists that I've seen. Al Green in Oklahoma City, 1975, and I took my daughter 3 or 4 years ago to see Andre Bocelli at the Hollywood Bowl. So if the music is good, I'll listen to it. And those were just two diametrically opposed shows that I've experienced in my life, and to enjoy them. I really like what you said too, Josh, about the freedoms that we get to enjoy, and with freedom comes a responsibility of civility and respect for others. And so let's go back to that. Why don't we?
Why don't we? Come on down a path of togetherness. Let's hold hands.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because all these rockers were preaching that back then. Really, they were. And even Marvin Gaye saying, "Why can't we live together?" And we can. And a lot of compassion, love, and forgiveness, and so we get to enjoy all these various artists, all the incredible talents, and not make people wrong for their choices. Like you alluded to, that you have your views, and I agree with so many of them. We as windshield time, like you said, that was a great metaphor to put it. Sharing memories and stories when songs would come on the radio, and I'm a little bit older than you, and I say, yeah, this was going on in America at this time. And the backdrop was they were singing about this and post-Vietnam War, and God, even the pill was coming in, and all that whole sexual revolution, and how it transferred through song and all these different genres of music. Very powerful medium. Like what you alluded to here, we're not just 2 or 3 guys sipping a cold one. We're on your Spotify channel with the Brummster. So it's great, man. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
I love it. I love you too, brother. Rock and roll, man. Russell Neese from Norman, Oklahoma. Rock stories with the Brummster. Real rock stories behind the scenes. You can check it out Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on rockradio559.com. And by the way, all week long, my buddy who has that station, I'm on every Friday from 5 to 6 as well, doing a hard drive at 5 rock show. But he plays great music, all album side vinyl weekends, all kinds of super 60s, the super 70s, cassette 80s sets. And I mean, it's just great tunage. Go there today, rockradio559.com. And before we go though, you have a real job. I don't normally do this, but brother, I love you, man. And just how hard of a worker you are. Thanks for sharing all these great rock memories today. My God, Jimi Hendrix. Oh my gosh, the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, George Jones, Willie Nelson, Hank Williams Jr., Ringo Starr, Marshall Tucker Band, ZZ Top. God, the list goes. George Harrison, Leon Russell, I mean, Billy Preston, Ravi, the list goes on, right? Just amazing rock memories you shared with us today. Thanks for Theater of the Mind bringing us along with you on this mental adventure, brother. Thank you. Now, before we let you go, though, I want you to take an opportunity. You are a Native American, and so thankful that you make that cultural, historical reality relevant today. It's very important that you hang on to that heritage and still promote it to this day. I know you do, and I'm so thankful that you're doing that. Share with our listeners at Rock Stories with the Brummster real quick what it is that you do for your real job and your passion there, and tell them about it and how they might be able to participate with you.
Thank you. Honored to be here as well. Yeah, I'm a Comanche descendant. I'm part owner in Native American Corporation in Oklahoma. It's called Native Hospitality, and it's nativehospitality.com. We fulfill hotels and casinos with pillowcases, sheets, disinfectants, everything that a hotel or hospitality setting would need. And we have a few other things in the fire as well that we're recruiting people that have goods and services into Indian country, because there's already a built-in client base with 530 federally recognized tribes that want to do business with guys like me and people that I bring in. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do. And thank you for letting me just give a thumbnail sketch about that.
Awesome, man. Folks, check it out, Russell Neese. You can find out and explore more about how you could partner in any Indian country with him as well and support his efforts. nativehospitality.com. Russell, thanks for joining us today for Rock Stories with the Brummster. Hang on the line for our engineers, brother.
All right, we'll do.
Rock Stories with the Brummster. Real behind-the-scenes rock stories, pulling back the curtain from the fans' perspective. Check it out on Spotify, the Brummster channel, all of our past episodes, and also airing every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at rockradio559.com. Until next time, rock on.